year that Luka's got better stat lines than even LeBron did, as good as he was his rookie year. Throughout really most of the season, a lot of people just were throwing a lot of shade at the Hawks for the fact of, like, how could you trade a talent like this? But Trae Young has just kind of continued to keep it rolling for the Hawks. And I think the way he has played the second half of the year, and he really hasn't hit that rookie wall, and he's really brought this trade into where you can say, you know what? Going forward, I don't know. Maybe it wasn't such a bad deal, especially we'll see how the pick plays out for them and who they're able to get in this draft, that they may be able to get two guys in the top 7 or 8 in this upcoming draft to put in with Trae Young, that all of a sudden this is a much closer race. So to me, Eric, when I look at it over the course of the year, I think you got to get it to Luka. But I think the fact now that this trade that Atlanta made isn't just laughable anymore, that Trae Young really looks like he has a chance to be a Steph Curry type, a Steph Curry light that the Hawks will be able to build around, and you sort of see the blueprint of what went on in Golden State and what you need to put around a guy like Trae Young. And if you could figure out a way to do that in Atlanta, all of a sudden, we've already talked about the East, that there's a lot of potential for changes. Kawhi could be gone out of the Eastern Conference, and that's going to leave the Raptors in a mess. We don't know if Philly's going to keep all their guys. Boston's got way more questions than answers at this point. So a team like Atlanta, Eric, if they do the right things with a guy like Trae Young, there's no selling in 2 or 3 years that they couldn't be a contender as well. But I think I still give it to Luka. But I think that the fact that Trae Young has kept this thing so close, especially the second half of the year, how he's closed the gap, he's probably saved a lot of people in Atlanta's jobs at this point.
The fact of the matter is this: the rookie class from last year is pretty impressive. Even guys that were highly talked about like Ayton and Bagley and Sexton, they're not disappointing. These guys have 15, 16, 17 points per game averages, as well as anywhere between 3 and 5 rebounds a game and a few assists per game. So you're not looking at guys in that class that were complete busts. But Doncic and Young are definitely the best two of the bunch. And I think at this point, you're right. I don't think that the Hawks, especially that this year was kind of still a rebuilding year. They finished low in the Eastern Conference standings. They're going to get a high draft pick again. If they hit on that draft pick, it's definitely within the realm of possibility that they are looking at a chance to be anywhere between the 4th and the 6th seed in the playoff race next year, just based on what might happen with some of those other teams. So I don't feel like this was a bad move now for the Hawks. I do agree with you that if I were going to vote today, despite the fact that Young has really shown out since the All-Star break with 25.3 points per game, really increasing his points per game average in that span. They both shoot about the same efficiency, right around 42%. Really, from the three-point line, they're almost identical at 33%. And they flip-flop in terms of rebounds and assists. Trae Young has more assists per game, but Doncic have more rebounds a game. And then on the flip side of it, Doncic has more assists than Young has rebounds. I don't want to say they're the same player, but I think they're providing the same value from a rookie standpoint. And so I don't think it's a bust for either team at this point. I do think Doncic is the type of player like LeBron who, and you said it with the stat lines, he's giving you 20 plus points per game, 7 plus rebounds a game, and nearly 6 assists per game. That is an incredible amount of balance for a rookie. And so with those stat lines, I think he just provides a different type of player than Young does. But Young, I think as he continues to become a better shooter and a better offensive power, he could light up the offense for 40 points on some nights. And I think that really helps the Hawks and gives them what they want. And then if he's still giving you 4 rebounds and 8 assists a game, that's a pretty good stat line. And they can fill that role of a small forward or forward on the Hawks down the road. I like it. I like it a lot for both teams. I think this all-star class was fantastic. But to me, I think my vote goes to Luka as well.
Yeah, and I think Luka has a chance to be the next superstar in this league. So I'm not trying to diminish what he's done at all. I just think it's impressive that Trae's been able to even make this a conversation where it's not just an automatic slam dunk.
Yeah, it's not like the Tatum and Fultz discussion.
Especially when you look back to Summer League where Trae Young looked awful in Summer League. I mean, he looked completely lost, like, oh my God, what has Atlanta done here? And the fact that he's sort of been able to find himself and kind of play through that. Atlanta's pretty fun to watch, actually. They're a pretty fun watch, especially if you can catch them on NBA TV or on the NBA package, where my God, I mean, they don't play any defense, but they score a ton of points. They're a pretty fun team to watch. But Eric, I think what Luka has done is just insanely impressive. And again, just think of the fact that he's 19 years old. He has 7 triple-doubles this year. It's tied for 5th in the league. The fact that this Mavericks team, they made some big moves this year. They really haven't had anybody to put around him to sort of protect him or a second star. Now, obviously, they hope next year Porzingis is that guy. But he's been able to do it as well on a team that probably has less talent than even a team like Atlanta. Because Atlanta, you look at least they have Collins and Herter, and they have some other pieces on that team that have been there in Bazemore, guys like that. Dallas really hasn't had that, and they've sort of had to flip the script even on who they brought in to get Porzingis and guys they shipped out, brought in, and they shut Hardaway Jr. down. Dirk is definitely in maybe potentially his last year with this team. He's nowhere near the player that he was. So I think that brings Luka even more into the spotlight of the year he's had. But let me ask you this. When you look at the league right now, and you could have either Luka or anybody else for the rest of their career. So again, if you take a guy like LeBron, you're getting 34-year-old LeBron that may have 3 years left. How many guys do you think you'd actually take in front of Luka?
Okay, wow. So let me make sure I'm understanding this question correctly. You're talking about everyone in the league as they are right now.
Right now, their age now. Yep.
Okay. Wow, that's a tough question because I don't think there'd be a lot. I think I would still take Durant over Luka. I don't think I would take LeBron. I don't think I would because he's definitely in his twilight. I mean, if Luka could give you this for 10, 12 years, why would you take the next 2 or 3 from LeBron? But Durant, I think, still has 6 to 8 years of, probably 4 to 5 of being great, and then 6 to 8 of being extremely productive. I might lean toward Westbrook a little bit on that too. I know that's going to surprise you. I don't think I'd take Harden because, yeah, he's a scorer, but I think Doncic gives you more overall. And so I think maybe 2 or 3 guys. I think maybe a Westbrook, maybe a Durant.
Giannis.
Yeah, Giannis.
But even a guy like Anthony Davis,
no.
I think based on his injury history and the fact that he kind of what he did this year, even as sort of a teammate, I think I would sort of take Luka. I think the point is, there's probably not over 7 guys in the league that you would take him over because of the fact that he's 19 years old and he's already shown out to be a kind of guy of this could actually be the next Westbrook, except efficient. He could be a guy that could average a triple-double and do it very, very efficiently in terms of his shooting from the floor where he doesn't seem to take a lot of bad shots, and he's doing this with not a lot around him. You bring a guy like Porzingis in, and if he can get back to the level that he was in New York when everybody was all over him as the next star and he was the unicorn and can do all these things, you match those 2 guys up, and if Porzingis decides to stay in Dallas and you get them together for the next 5+ years, I think he just has a chance to be a complete star in this league.
Well, I think you've answered the question right there then, because you wouldn't say the same thing about Trae Young. In other words, I agree with you. I don't think I could name 7 people that I would take ahead of Luka right now in their careers, but I think I could probably name 15 guys that I would take ahead of Trae Young. So I think that answers the question. If you're going to go to that level of conversation about Luka, that puts him in a class of his own, and I think that makes him sort of the hands-down rookie of the year, even though Trae Young has definitely not been a bust. I mean, we're not talking about the trade now for, Tatum and Fultz situation, right? We're not talking about that anymore. I think Trae Young is going to be a solid star for the Hawks. It's just that Luka's better. So I think both teams made out, but yeah, I think you've answered your question then. Luka's our rookie of the year, right? Oh
yeah, for sure. And I don't want to mean that there was a debate about who should be. I think that point is great, that this trade looked a little bit like Tatum Fultz. Like, you've given up a pick, or, you may be getting a pick back, but you gave up a superstar. And now all of a sudden, at least Trae has made it so Atlanta feels like, okay, we didn't get totally jobbed in this. We got a really good player, and we got a potential high draft pick. And I think the Mavericks feel good because they're like, hey, we've brought a star in that could be in one of our uniforms for the next 8 years before we really have to deal with him hitting free agency as the way things are constituted now, or how they can control him and extend him off of this rookie deal. So I think both teams made out. But yeah, for me, it's still Luka. But I think the fact that even you can sort of bring Trae Young up in this conversation, at least be able to talk about his statistics in the year he's had, like I said, I think it's definitely saved some jobs in Atlanta. Let me ask you one more question on this. So if we're drafting today, NBA draft, you have the first pick, and you get to select from either Zion or Luka. Where are you going?
Oh, wow. Well, first of all, if that were the case and that I was the one responsible for drafting the first pick in the NBA, I would be so excited because that would be an amazing job to have. Now, outside of that, I would take Luka. I would take Luka because to me, I mean, and that's based now knowing what we know today.
Right.
We now have seen one season of NBA ball from Luka, and we've seen not any NBA ball from Zion, and we have maybe just a few minor concerns on how Zion's game is going to transition. Do I think Zion's going to make out well in the NBA? Yeah, I really do. I think he's going to be a long-term player, assuming he stays healthy. He just has the physique and the physicality to be able to do that, and he can still shoot and rebound and do the things well that you need a forward to do. But I think Luka overall is probably going to be, I would say, from a cumulative standpoint, the amount of years he's in the league and what he can do as a glue to hold everything together, I think I would probably still take Luka.
I'm right there with you. And remember, what's funny is last year, Luka was drafted really third in this draft. So two guys went in front of him, and he's that type of player now. Again, you hit it right there where we already have seen Luka and what he can do. So I think most would have to take Luka at this point. But remember, Zion is the slam dunk, really number one pick. That's the consensus guy that everyone's got, that everyone is tanking for at this point. But if they were both available, I'm right there with you. I go with Luka. All right, Eric, I got to ask you this because I was trying to watch some of the match play golf this weekend.
Oh, boy.
And your boy, Sergio Garcia.
My boy.
What?
Tiger's my boy, or Ricky's my boy, or Jordan Spieth's my boy. How's Sergio my boy?
Oh, okay. Well, okay.
No, I like Sergio.
I just thought you were a all around. I mean, at least he hasn't tweeted at you and had like his angry mob come at you for a.
Yeah, Graham Dillette's definitely not my boy. James Hahn's not my boy. I can tell you those guys aren't my boys.
All right, so Sergio Garcia is out there doing what I'm trying to teach my now 5-year-old daughter not to do when we're playing golf, which is don't chase the ball around and beat it at the hole. Probably something you shouldn't do in match play, but for some reason, Sergio is doing that this weekend and looks like he's going to throw down with Kuchar at one point where you really seem to never see that in golf, where you've got two guys in match play who are arguing with each other at this point out in the middle of the fairway. So who was right here and who was wrong when you look back at what went on with Matt Kuchar and Sergio Garcia this weekend?
Well, unfortunately for Sergio, he's wrong. I mean, it's a situation in match play, and for our listeners who don't know the exact rules of match play and how that differs, is you don't have to putt out. If your partner concedes the hole, whether in a win or a loss, you can pick up your ball. But you have to have that concession being made verbally or in some direct official way. You can't just assume it. Kuchar had made a putt to save, I think, a par at that point. Sergio missed his putt, and the ball was literally like 2 inches from the hole, maybe 3, I don't know. It was very, very close. And Sergio didn't even look up at Matt. He kind of went over and just smacked it with his putter, and it missed the hole again, and so he just picked it up. At that point, he's picking up a live ball because Kuchar had never conceded the putt. And Kuchar said, well, I would have conceded the putt, but the official said it's too late. I mean, Sergio picked up without knowing, and so Sergio loses the hole when really they should have just tied the hole. And so that put Sergio another point down in the match. He went 2 down at that point. His emotions were going crazy. Obviously, Sergio's emotions do that. He gets then to 3 down on the next hole in the match, and he's just losing his mind. So then they're walking up the fairway a couple holes later, and he's walking backwards facing Matt Kuchar, and he's just mouthing and mouthing and mouthing. And they're, like you said, they're, from all we could tell, they're arguing with each other right there in the middle of the fairway as they walk up 2 holes later. But the problem is Sergio was wrong. Matt tried to do the noble thing. He tried to say to the official, yeah, I know he picked it up, but I would have given him that putt. It just happened so fast that he didn't hear me, or I didn't have a chance to say it, or whatever the case is. It doesn't matter. The rules are that if there was no concession made and accepted, that ball is still live, and Sergio shouldn't have picked it up. It's not stroke play, so the penalty in match play is that you lose the hole. And so that's why Sergio lost the hole. Now, after a couple holes, Sergio calmed down. He ended up admitting after the match that he was mad at himself and then sort of projected that over to Matt Kuchar. Matt really didn't do anything wrong. But yeah, Justin, from a TV perspective, I was actually watching over the weekend, and that was entertaining. That was very entertaining because I never thought that two golfers could get that hyped at each other. And even on the hole later, Sergio missed the putt